Today I'm with Brian Garvin, an all-star in supply chain management and an international business consultant. On social media and in my general network, I noticed an uptick in people looking for work, the open to work tag on LinkedIn, those things. And this is where this series idea originated. My purpose with the series is to get people more exposure by giving them a platform to talk about their skills. I also want to provide motivation to others and hopefully learn a few new job search ideas and tips, and also create a community where people can inform each other, share, and possibly be edutained. So as I'd mentioned, today I'm with Brian Garvin. So Brian, let's just dive right in and talk to you about your where you are in your career and some other ideas. So can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, sir?
Sure. Hi, Chris. Well, really happy to be here today, and it's a good opportunity to talk to you. And I really want to, help you and support your channel. And if I can offer any sort of experience or tips, or just give a little bit of information about what I've been doing, if it, hopefully, if it helps someone else in their job search, that's great as well.
So are
So
you,
yeah, a little bit about myself. Yeah, Brian Garvin. I live in Panama City Beach, Florida. I'm actually from here. I grew up here as a kid, right here at the beach, and the beautiful Gulf Coast, white sand beaches. So it's a great place to grow up. Lots of things to do here, and outdoors with swimming and boating and scuba diving, and I did all those things. Got out of high school, went to college, went to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. And it was a small town back in those days, and not so much to do from a industry standpoint. It was all mostly tourism and so forth. My background was, mechanical engineering, so I studied engineering at Alabama. And once I graduated from Alabama, I couldn't wait to get out of here. I wanted to go somewhere else and get into my manufacturing or whatever I was going to do with my engineering degree, and got that opportunity and moved around a lot, and then I spent 35 years trying to get back home. So I'm back home now, and I'm really happy about that. We have a family and a dog and everything else, and so I have my sisters and family are here, so it's lots of my old friends are here. So I'm really happy to be back home. But my career took me everywhere from Birmingham, Alabama to Chicago, Illinois to China even, and spent a lot of time in China. And now I'm back here in Panama City, and that's where we're at right now.
well, thank you for that. So international, I was correct, international business consultant. So an international man of mystery, perhaps. So what's your current job status?
Chris, I'm currently working as an independent consultant with a global medical device company, and they are implementing some of the supply chain management software that was developed by the company of my previous employer, Blue Yonder. So I'm helping this organization out as subject matter expert as part of their Center of Excellence for Supply Chain and Management and Planning to help them with the software, understand the software, going through some of the optimization and configuration, and then they're in troubleshooting, and to just be sort of a sounding board to help the planners as they're implementing the software, understanding how to use it, and helping them when they have questions about the software.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. I want to talk about things people are doing as part of their job search. So you were let go from or laid off from Blue Yonder, and you were in job search.
Yeah, that's correct. So taking another step back, I was, as I mentioned, I had been living in China, working full time in supply chain management, mostly manufacture from a manufacturing side, introducing new products, helping Western companies that were looking for manufacturers in China or wanted to develop new products in China, and were looking for different options. So that was kind of what I was involved in for almost 20 years in China. But we were looking for a way to come back to the US, and what we'll touch on as a theme here, networking. I reached out to a former colleague in China who was already back in the States. Turns out he was working for this company, Blue Yonder, and said that they were always looking for new people. And so he was able to get me introduced to them, got me an interview, and they ended up offering me a position as a solution architect. So someone who actually designs the implementation for utilizing their software to meet business needs for their clients. So they offered me that position in 2022, and I moved back to the States and became a software solution architect for Blue Yonder, which was a little bit of a switch for me because, as I said, I'd always been involved in manufacturing, product introduction, product design, quality control, supply chain engineering, and all those operations side of things, helping customers move product from one place to another on time at the right kind of at the right level of quality. That was where my real background was and my experience was. So coming to Blue Yonder is more of a having to learn a lot more on the software side of things from a technical standpoint, learning a lot of new skills that are involved more with software, like learning SQL and how to manipulate, navigate through a database with SQL searches and things like that. So that was a whole lot of difference. The fact that I was able to successfully transition from that, manufacturing operation into this software engineering world, is an accomplishment that I was really pleased with. So yeah, so that was a long way to say yes. I was working with Blue Yonder, a engineering company that specializes in supply chain management solutions for their multi-billion dollar and global clients around the world.
And that gets into what I think is going to be a tip or a strategy for anybody that's out there picking up on these things. So you left Blue Yonder and you were not doing anything for a while.
Yeah, it came right at the end of last year. So I kind of just, with the holidays and everything else, I sort of just, took a little bit of time off for reflection and just, as resting and trying to determine, and plot a course for what was my next course of action. And like a lot of people that find themselves out of work, first panic sets in. What am I going to do next? How am I going to find that new job? What am I going to do in the meantime? And so forth. But, rather than, jumping right back into a job search, kind of took a few weeks off and everything like that. And then probably like a lot of other people, I started going on to job boards or LinkedIn. LinkedIn is very popular for job postings and things like that. But I think what's really important is before you jump into any sort of looking for a new job, is assess where you want to be. What do you want to do? And I guess at our level of experience in our careers, we probably have a little bit more luxury in the fact that we are better defined on what we want to do. We don't necessarily have to jump into a job just to get a job or focus just on a job title. We can really sit back and determine, what are our skills, what do we want to do, and where do we want to continue moving with our career. So I think that gives us a little bit of a luxury in that. What I did was, first obviously looking at things on LinkedIn. I wanted to, again, I wanted to continue to leverage my background, obviously in manufacturing operations, supply chain management, but now with a whole host of new skills with companies like Blue Yonder, who now had implementations and solutions from a software standpoint for supply chain management, which is really cool. And it's a really neat solution in the way that it works. And I've learned so much more about, the software side of things, the algorithm, how does it really work? And then it really opens your eyes to see just how complex and complicated modern supply chains can be, especially for larger companies with a global presence. When you talk about all of the nodes that they have in a supply chain, from manufacturing sites to suppliers to distribution centers to clients, and just the sheer number of hundreds of thousands, if not even millions, of SKUs that are within their supply chain, and understanding how difficult it is to plan that supply chain in order to get the right product at the right place in the right quantities, on time. And the amount of planning and sheer work that goes into that is just daunting. So just seeing all that and how the software sort of simplifies that in some regard, it helps planners be more efficient at their job, gives companies more oversight into their entire supply chain. So I find all that very fascinating, and I obviously wanted to continue leveraging that side of my new skills as well. So that's why I wanted to continue in this sort of a role in supply chain management, either as a consultant or working with another of the other companies that might offer a software solution, or with directly with another company that was already using that type of software. So that was kind of where my goal was, and kind of the direction that I wanted to continue moving in.
Let's just go with the start of the year. The start of the year, you were looking around. You mentioned LinkedIn and other job boards, and so your goal was to find a job.
Well,
And
yeah, because I mean, just the sheer number of job listings that you see on LinkedIn, for example, it's overwhelming. So I'd found, and from other people that I've watched or read about, or watched their podcasts or videos, the shotgun effect is really doesn't work. You have to be very, very targeted, laser focused, and say, I know this is exactly what I want to do. These are the five companies that I'd like to try and work for. And so that's one strategy, is to reach out to companies that you think could use your skills. They may not even have a job posting, but if you get to the right person and introduce yourself from a networking point of view, you might find something there that is helpful. Otherwise, again, looking at the sheer number of the job postings that are out there, if you do find a position or a posting that is interesting or intriguing and you think would be a good fit, a good match for you, again, don't just take the first job. You want to be happy in it, right? We all want to be happy in our careers. My next strategy was not to just blindly apply to these postings on LinkedIn, because sometimes they just go to a box, and then with AI, people now are spending so much time using AI to modify their resumes and their introduction cover letters and things like that, and those go to an AI box. So now you basically have AI talking to AI, and you've actually removed all the humans from the process, right? You spend all your time, making your resume look good for, and specifically target it to that specific job posting, and then AI, and then you submit it to that company, and then it goes into their AI box to see if you actually checked off all the boxes, and to make sure that you're actually a good fit before becomes a person to person thing again, and they can talk. But anyway, that's one way to do it. So rather than just blindly sending it to replying on LinkedIn or Monster or any of those other ones out there, I found it better to find out who the actual company is, go to the company website, see if they have the job posting there, see if you can find the right person that you could talk to. Now, LinkedIn is also could be good to find some of that information, like who works in HR, find out if there's someone that is working there that also maybe went to the same university that you did, or worked in another company that you worked in before. Maybe reach out to them, reconnect, and introduce yourself, and say, hey, maybe you could get a recommendation from them. So, using the networking again, I think is so much more effective in finding a role than just blindly replying to all these job postings that are out there. There's just so many of them. I would even wonder if they're all legitimate. And then sometimes you look at some of the requirements for some of these positions, and the list is so long. It's like no one person could have all that experience or all that technical ability to do what this job listing is posting is saying.
you mentioned earlier, Brian, that you're contracting now or consulting on your own. Did you find that through LinkedIn?
Well, no, that way that came about was I reached out to a client who was I should say, I reached out to a contact who is a client of Blue Yonder, and I knew that they were going through a new implementation, because I had been involved with them earlier on while I was still at Blue Yonder for some training and some other activities. I wasn't involved in their implementation because they did it through actually another third party who sometimes engages the companies will engage to implement the Blue Yonder software without actually using Blue Yonder. There's some pluses and minuses to that, pros and cons, using a third party as well. But just so I knew they were going through it. So I reached out to the right person there and I said, hey, I'm not with Blue Yonder anymore, but I know you guys are going through your implementation. I'm sure you have a lot of questions about, how the software actually gets used, how it's configured, how to optimize it once you're in there and trying to use it. And I said, I'm available. I'd love to come in and, if you have a position, or I can just do it as an independent consultant. And they thought that was a great idea. So I think, reaching out to people, in my case, that was a client of my former customer, sorry, my former employer that was actually using the software that I had been involved in as a solution architect. So they were very happy to have someone with direct experience with the software to come on, as well as my supply chain management experience and so forth. So they were very happy to have me come on as a consultant.
Yeah, that's a great point right there because, especially if you're client facing or customer facing and you have knowledge of what people are working on, I think that's a great tip to take away just from this. If you learn nothing else from this session.
That I think offer offering your services to a potential company as an independent consultant is a great way to do it. Now, there's a lot of things you got to do, like setting up your business, and it's not like working for a company where they take out taxes and do all that. You have to do all that on your own. So there's some other things on the outside of actually working for the company that you have to do as an independent consultant. But those are easy to learn and achievable and easy to overcome. It gives the companies a little bit of a flexibility as well. They don't have to actually hire someone right away, and they don't have to offer all the benefits that they normally do for an employee, like insurance and 401ks and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of gives both the consultant and the company an opportunity to kind of get to know each other and work together, even if it's on a temporary basis or even if it's on a month to month basis, whatever, just to get a good feel and say, hey, does this person really know what they're talking about? And is he a good fit for our company? And it gives the consultant the opportunity to kind of test drive the company and make sure that the people that he's working with, the role that he's involved in, and the workload that he's providing, and the value that he's providing is a good fit for not only the company and the consultant as well. So I think there's a lot of pros to that sort of approach for both the person looking for a job and the company that needs to hire.
Yeah, I think that's worth the price of the show right there. I mean, people listening, that if you can take away one thing, and that's what I like to say, as I said, you can give ideas to share job search suggestions and points.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a
yeah.
pretty neat one. So I'm impressed that you thought outside the box to do that. And I guess that's partly what you did in your international business experience. You're always, looking for ways to do business. So, and is that your goal now, is to stay what you're doing, or and you don't have to answer that. I guess it's not relevant, but
Well, I find it fascinating. And again, I think the whole, with my career, supply chain management, manufacturing, going back to, why did I even become a mechanical engineer? I just I'm fascinated with the way things are made. And I think that's one of the neat things that I've been able to do in my career is I've touched on many different industries, all with that theme of supply chain management, optimization, quality control, product design, and product new product introduction. And I've just been able to see, going from my early career, working in foundries where molten metal foundries in Birmingham, Alabama, and just seeing all the processes that go into, making a centrifugally cast ductile iron pipe, to seeing all the different types of processes in the molten metals industries, from sand molding to powdered metal to investment casting, and a multitude of different products that are made from cast iron pipe used in water and sewer systems to turbine blades used in a jet engine. Very fascinating stuff. But then going to China and just being involved in so many different industries, from PCBAs to injected plastics, fabricated metals, toys, medical devices, you name it. I've probably been in a factory in China that makes a product for that industry. So just getting that sort of insight into how stuff gets made everywhere, again, it's just fascinating for me. And then, as I mentioned, with the supply chain, it's just overwhelming, and knowing how difficult it can be and how vast some of these supply chains can be. Going back to the software, when you talk about a supply chain, it's really you got three operations. You want to meet demand. It's all begins with demand. Where is that demand located? Is it customer demand? Is it at a distribution center? Is it in a manufacturing facility? But in order to meet that demand, and ultimately, it's putting a product on a shelf that a customer can buy, be it Walmart or Home Depot, or a medical device at a hospital. It's you can make something, you can move it, or you can buy it, and that's really it comes down to those three operations. But when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of SKUs and numerous locations around the world, and as I mentioned, all the complexities involved with that, and how you solve those problems and the problems that arise and how you do solve those problems. For me, that's very interesting, and I like continuously learning about that whole industry and the problems that arise and how those problems are solved. So to answer your question in a long way is I want to stay in that sort of role and stay in that sort of position and continue to leverage my experiences with not only the real world but in the software side of things. And that's what this role has given me, because coming from the software side of things, so many people get too bogged down on the technical side of things and more engrossed on the software side of things without having that real world experience. And I think having had the opportunity to be in both really gives me a lot of flexibility and a lot more opportunities that might be out there.
So what I'm hearing is you could possibly turn this consulting role into a permanent role. You seem
Absolutely, and it could be. And again, the flexibility of maybe not even one client at one time. Although I'm pretty full time with this client, and I couldn't imagine having more than one. I don't think at any one time. But it gives you that flexibility that you're not a direct employee, so you're not exactly dedicated to one client like this, like you would if you were a direct employee. But the fact that as a consultant, I'm full time focused on them. But I still keep my fingers in other areas, just to, again, and I'm networking. So now I've branched out my networking into obviously I still have a lot of contacts in China. I have contacts in Vietnam for supply chain, primarily footwear, garments, and clothing manufacturers, and the furniture business. Yeah, again, I've had that opportunity to live around the world and meet a lot of people, a lot of interesting people in a lot of different industries. And I think if I'm good at nothing, I'm good at networking and meeting people and talking to them, and learning about what they do. So that's the other part of my job that I find interesting. So I try to maintain my connections with all those people around the world.
interesting. Well, we've gotten a good 30 minutes of discussion in here so far, so we're backing up against the clock. And I know you're important and busy. Before I ask you for your final thoughts, what I picked up is some key points. We learned a little bit about supply chain management, which is always a bonus for us. Is one, have a plan. You talked about a strategy, just you don't want a shotgun thing. You don't want to, blast things out. You want to be very rifle focused. Use multiple job boards. You kind of alluded to that concept, and go find the actual company. Don't apply through the job board. And then what I picked up on is think outside the box. Being a contractor or consultant offers you flexibility and offers your customer flexibility. And it sounds like you could turn this into a full-time role. And then all that is built on what you just said recently, Brian, is networking. You want to be, you're very good at networking, and everybody should try to get out there and keep themselves exposed in terms of where they are in their careers, and everybody needs help. So LinkedIn's a good tool for that, but there are other ways to do that, as you talked about. Any final words before we end the show?
Well, I think you summarized that pretty well there, Chris. Yeah, again, the networking part, and being focused, not applying to, every job that you see, but, maybe two or three good jobs a day. If you're actively looking, getting back to kind of like where we started in the beginning of more of a job search kind of thing, but being focused, knowing where exactly you want to do or the type of companies that you want to work for. And the other thing, some of the other aspects to a company that you might not focus on, again, if you think, well, I just need to get a job, but company environment is very important, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get a real feel for that. Some of the times, some of the things you see on a website about a company, about us. Oh, we care about people. Our people are, our best asset. And a lot of that can, maybe it's you take it with a little bit of grain of salt. But I also want to stress that, but the environment, the people that you're going to work with. And now a lot of us are still working remotely. So that was another thing we didn't really touch on too much. My positions are all remote, so everything's done from a home office. But I know obviously now a lot of people are getting more and more back to work and going to offices and things like that. So, that's important too. And that's another part of the thing. Another thing we didn't talk about is that, after COVID and everyone started working pretty in our types of businesses, working remotely, take that need for interaction a little bit is important, I think. So having that network also just for support, we've got to know each other pretty well over the past year or so, and some of the people that you've introduced in our circle of in the job search and things like that are important. So I would say the other little piece of advice I'd have is if you're at home and if you're still working remotely, is don't forget your friends, don't forget your colleagues, and networking and talking to people. And people will help if they can help you. Most people are happy to help you. So, just letting people know that you're looking for a new job can also be very, very helpful as well. So, those are a few other tips I think I'd throw in there.
And the list keeps growing. So this could be the most productive show we've had. Yeah, what's the best way, Brian, for people to get in touch with you? Or are you open to connecting? So they send you an email, LinkedIn request? What's
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, I think maybe you could share my LinkedIn contact that. I think my email's in my LinkedIn profile. And so that's probably, if anyone has any questions for me, or if they will just want to reach out to pick my brain, I'm always, if I have the time, I'm more than happy to help.
Well, great. And thanks again, Brian. And I'll wrap up here with letting people know again, the goal of this series, this new series, is to give guests such as Brian a platform to showcase, his skills and what he's doing to be productive in job search or in transitions. Provide maybe some motivation and sometimes hope to others that may be going through a difficult time in the job search mode, and share job search ideas. We got a whole list of here what things that Brian has talked about. So those are the kind of the key tips, and maybe they'll be over the couple of next months. They'll be intertwined with others, things that other people say, but you'll probably start hearing a theme there. So pay attention to that. And if you are listening, thank you for joining the show. Hit like and subscribe. That helps. And if you're interested in being a guest on the show, maybe you're in job search transition now, or you've just recently got a job, send a note to Chris at the scdr.com, or text or call at 770-331-3908. And maybe we can get you on the show and we can share your story. So thanks for listening.